Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining this Friday's Promap webinar. My name is Paul Marshall. I work as an account director at Landmark, and also online is my colleague Nick Mills, who's the head of our training team. Today's session is to introduce the Promap system. We'll be showing key tips and tricks, some cost-saving methods, and all the capabilities that are available to you that make your lives easier when you're using Promap for whatever your data requirement may be. As well as access to all the layers of Ordnance Survey mapping in both print and digital formats, you can also overlay layers of data such as planning history and flooding extents, and also purchase utility, contamination and flood reports and historical maps to complement your knowledge of your site. All this alongside the award-winning drawing and measuring tools and library of saved map tiles, which will make Promap an effective and efficient tool for you. So once you've got a secure login for Promap, you can access the system via any internet browser. And today we'll show you how you can confidently use the system without racking up cost, how you can produce maps and access data you require in the formats and licenses you need, and how you can get ongoing support should you ever require it. On the right-hand side of the screen today, you can download samples of the products that are available in Promap, and there's a companion there that you can download that will assist you when you're using the website. And if you do have any questions as we're going through the demonstration, please use the question facility on the same side of the screen. And myself and Nick will be on hand throughout the session and also available at the end for a full Q&A session. Also today, you'll see the new data layers product, which will give you access to data such as planning history, contamination of flood extents, and HMLR title boundaries, amongst others, and allow you to overlay these over your maps. So we hope you find the session useful and are confident in using Promap by the end. But a key thing to remember is that we're always on hand to help with its use. So please feel free to contact us post-session should you ever require it. So I'm going to hand over to Nick now, who'll take you through a demonstration of the website. Nick, over to you.
Thanks, Paul. Well, as Paul said, we're going to take you through Promap today. Now, for the purposes of today, I'm going to access it via Google Chrome. As Paul mentioned, the new version is now accessible on all major browsers, all major operating systems. It's Google Chrome that I will be using for the purposes of today. So when you go into Google Chrome, enter Promap V2 into the search bar, it will appear as one of the top options in the list. Select that option and it will initially take you through to this main launch screen. From here, you can launch the application. Excuse me, you can launch the application, or if you want to get straight in and look at the wide range of training materials that we have that accompany the Promap system, you can access the training center from here as well. You can also do that once you've got the application open. I'll show you where that is as we go through the session. Once you've launched the application, it will initially take you through to this screen here. So you'll have the login screen in front of you, the application in the background. Enter your login details. Promap is free to register for and is effectively a pay-as-you-go system, so it costs you nothing to get login details. Enter your details, click on login, and at that point, you're into the application, and it will also take you straight into the mapping as well. Now, down the right-hand side of the screen here, you can see you've got 8 available map players to you. It will always initially, when you go in, start you on the open map player. You'll also find that it will always start you at this point here on the mapping, point in Birmingham, roughly a midpoint in the country and a good starting point for a search. And the reason that I say that is this map player that we've gone into, along with all of the map players from aerial downwards in this list, are free to view, free to roam on a national basis. When you're trying to locate sites, look at the area around the site, those are the best map players to use for it. The only map player that you have on the system that has any sort of viewing charges and roaming charges, as it was on previous versions of Promap, is that top layer, the OS Master Map Topography layer. You pay a viewing charge when you go in to look at a brand new site for the first time. It's also the only one that has any sort of roaming limits on it. That being said, following on from a recent update that we've done on the system, both the viewing charges and the roaming charges have been significantly reduced on the system and are half what they were previously. You'll also find when you go into that master map player that you get a free amount of roaming significantly more than what you had previously. It used to be that you would get 1 kilometre squared around your site to search in. Now you get 5.5 kilometres squared. So not just reducing the cost, but increasing that free viewing and roaming area as well. Now, to begin this session, what I'm going to do is run you through the main screen, show you where everything is located. And we'll start with the top taskbar in the top left-hand corner. There you can enter your search information, address, tile, grid reference, the traditional search methods of Promap. And you've also got the option now as well, if you're searching in England and Wales, to search by land registry title number as well. Land registry information, one of the new elements in this version of Promap, and it's available to you in a number of different forms. And you'll see that as we go through. The title number search does work slightly differently from the rest as well. When you're searching by the address, tile or grid reference, it will always open up your map initially on the open map layer. In the case of the title search, that will take you straight into that master map topography layer, the only one that you have to pay for. But what it will also do at the same time is automatically apply your title outline onto the map for you. So you'll have that there straight away. You'll be able to start working on it. We'll run through, as I say, a practical example of that as we go through the session. To the right of that, for those of you using CAD GIS systems, you've got the ability to upload your shape files into Promap, which will immediately bring up the mapping for the area that you're interested in and overlay your polygon on top of it as well, so that you can then access via the export section the data that you need and take them out from there. To the right of that, that's where you can access your previously saved maps on Promap. When you go into this area, what we've basically done is amalgamated all the search options to one place. Down the left-hand side of the screen, it will show you your 10 most recently accessed maps on the system. In the central section, that will show you all of the various folders that you've got on the system and the maps saved into those folders. They will all be listed there. In the top left-hand corner of the screen, you've got a keyword search facility that will allow you to search based on the map name, file name, reference that you enter for the map when you saved it onto the system. And I'll go through the save process in just a second. To open your map, just select it from your folder. What it will then do on the right-hand side of the screen is tell you what folder the map's located in, give you the full map name, the reference, and any information that was entered into the description section. It will also at the same time tell you when, if any orders have been placed against that map. So you'll know there's potentially the option to reuse an order, possibly avoid paying the printing charge again, the viewing charge again, but it just tells you that information there. Now, one thing to be aware of when you are searching through your maps is that we have added in a new date filter on the left-hand side. The reason for this, because a lot of companies that we work with have now saved a significant number of maps onto the system, it's taking longer and longer to search through them. So initially, when you go in now, it will only show you the maps that you've saved in the last 2 years. If you do need to go back further than that, you can update that date filter and go back as far as you like on the system. We'll enable you to do that. So that's our open map screen. Now, obviously, one of the prerequisites for searching through your saved maps, you have to be able to save them in the first place. The icon for that immediately to the right-hand side. A very straightforward process. Click on your save map icon, select the folder that you want to save your map into, or create a new folder if you wish. On the right-hand side, give your map a name, a reference, enter description information if you require it, and then save your map. And at that point, it'll be saved on the system till you decide to remove it. And also, whenever you open up your map going forward via that open save map area, it will automatically update to give you the latest OS information available for your site. I will run through the save process a couple of times again as we go through today's session. Now, as I move across the top taskbar, next icon I come to, Help, again, as I mentioned before, a link through to the training area of Promap to get access to the help videos, user guides, training manuals, all accessible from there. We'll also give you the contact details for our customer services team. So if you do have any questions or queries relating to the system, they will be able to assist you. To the right of that, notifications tying in with the export and report ordering elements of Promap. There are a couple of the exports, a couple of the reports that can take up to an hour to come through. So rather than you sitting there looking at loading screens, enables you to go off and do other bits and pieces on the system once you've ordered it, and a notification will then appear there when it's ready so that you know you can go into your order history under account, obtain your order, and download it off of the system. It's just designed to do that for you. The icon to the right-hand side of that, probably in this day and age, particularly where we've been in lockdown so long and everybody's doing online purchasing now, the online shopping basket. And it works in very much the same way as a number of online purchasing systems, your Amazons, Ocados, people of that type. All you're going to do is you're going to put all of your products into the shopping basket, check out at the end when you're ready. And again, I'll show you that full process as we go through today. To the right of that, an extremely important area as far as this version of Promap is concerned, the account section. In here, you'll find order history and admin. Order history, the really important element here. Now, you can access it from here at any stage, but it's also now where you are automatically taken when you order anything from Promap. You will ultimately end up on this screen. In the central section there, what it will then do is give you your order date and time, tell you what products you've ordered, the types, the references, the status of your order. On the right-hand side, under the detailed information, we'll give you the order number, tell you what scale, paper size, orientation, format we used previously, in case you want to reuse this map. And probably most importantly in that regard, a little bit further down, it will tell you when that map's in license till. But just like the original versions of Promap, when you pay to print on this one, you are paying for a 12-month copyright license on your map. So you can reuse it for 12 months after without incurring that charge again. The other thing to specify at this particular stage, and you'll see these icons on the right-hand side here, reprint and edit print. In this version of Promap, if you want to reprint a map that you've done previously, or if you want to edit a map that you've ordered previously, rather than you would have done on older versions of Promap, gone into your save maps to do it, you come to the order history to do it. You just select the order that you want to reprint or edit. Once you've selected it, as you can see, the icons for that will appear on the right-hand side of the screen. To search for your various orders, on the left-hand side, you're provided with a number of filters: keyword, order type, date range, license status. You can look purely at your orders or look at the organization as a whole if you require. So that's under our order history, and we will return to that a couple of times as I go through the session. Admin will be the other option that you have available to you. And when you go into here, you'll have the My Settings section. That will give you the ability to change the appearance of your site marker or select which measurement units you want to include on the map. That option also has now been added to your shape properties boxes as well. You're probably more likely to use that there. I will again be demonstrating it later. Also, you'll have access to the expenditure section. So if you're trying to track your spend on the system, you're trying to allocate a cost to a particular job or client, don't want to wait for the end of the month for the invoice to come through, this enables you to run a number of different reports on the date range of your choice. So again, just helping speed up the whole workflow for you. So that's across our top taskbar. If we move to the bottom of the screen there, it'll tell us which map player we've currently got open, give us the easting and northern coordinates, OS tile number, and national grid reference for wherever our cursor is positioned on the screen. If you're trying to obtain that information from the map or pinpoint onto the map using that, you can do so inaccurately. Continuing across the bottom taskbar, the next item you come to is planning links. That ties into the viewable layers that Paul mentioned a little bit earlier. And I'll demonstrate those when we get to our OS master map a little later. Site information to the right of that, a very useful tool if you're not 100% sure that you've got the right location displayed, or you literally just want to draw address information from the map. By clicking on there, clicking on any point on the map, what it will then do is give you the easting and northern coordinates for that point and immediately tell you what the nearest postal address to it is. So again, very useful tool for making sure I've got the right site for obtaining that information. And that site information tool available to you on all the map players from Open Map upwards in this particular list. Again, very, very useful. The toggle option so that you can turn that site marker that we mentioned earlier on and off is located just to the right of that. And to the right of again, that's where you'll find your zoom options. Although most people, if I'm honest, if they're going to zoom in and out on the map, tend to use their mouse wheels to do it. You've got that capability also. On the left-hand side of the screen, that's where you've got your 3 different journeys you can take through the system. Export, taking data out to put it into CAD, GIS systems, things like that. Print, probably the most common journey on the system, opening up a map, putting your outlines on it to get area measurements, boundary measurements, then printing the map off as a PDF or a JPEG. Finally, reports, ordering for the range of reports that are available through the Promap system. Now, this is an area that up until very recently has caught a few people out on the system. It used to be the case that when you logged into Promap, for no other reason than alphabetically it was top of the list, it would automatically select the Export tab on the left-hand side of the screen. As I mentioned before, the most popular journey in Promap is the print one. And the reason that this choosing the export first caused so much of an issue is that the draw and measure tools in this version of Promap, and you'll find those under the draw tab on the right-hand side of the screen, those draw and measure tools are now directly linked to the task that you have selected on the left-hand side. And a lot of people who wanted to print their maps had gone in, not realized that the export tab was selected rather than the print tab, and were then wondering why some of their draw and measure tools were missing. Because when you've got export or reports selected, it removes the unnecessary tools. The only time that you see the full range of tools is when you have print accessed on the left-hand side. Now, what we have added in to try and alleviate this issue, you've now got this default option at the top. So if print is going to be the job that you're doing most often, next time you log in, select print as your tab, make it your default tab, it will automatically go to that every time you log in after. So those are our options on the left, and we'll look at all three of those today. On the right-hand side, we've already mentioned about the map players, the draw measure tools, and that's also where you can find the viewable layers as well. And the viewable layers, again, available to you on all the map players from that open map player upwards in the list. And I will go through them in more depth later in the session. So that's where we begin. Now, let's go through and do a practical example of how I would use these various tools and options in the system. So I'm going to start by doing probably the most common search on Promap. I'm going to search based upon a postcode. I've entered my postcode. It then gives me a list of all the addresses that fit that criteria. And I get the full addresses straight away. So if I want to use this as a free address search, postcode finder, it's not going to restrict me to 10 or 12 a day as other certain well-known websites do, or charge me for any searches over and above that. I can use this as often as I like to get the address information that I need. Now, as soon as I select my address from the list, three things will happen. Firstly, it would open up the map of my site on that open map player we mentioned on the right-hand side of the screen. What you will also find is that it will automatically search through all the previous orders and all the saved maps that you've got on Promap to see if anybody within your organization has ordered anything for this site before. If they have, we'll tell you how many orders there are, how many saved maps there are, and the little I button just to the right-hand side of that will then allow you to shortcut straight through to those areas, potentially reuse a saved map, avoiding a viewing charge, potentially reusing an order, avoiding the printing charge again. So it just gives you that capability. Excuse me. Now, for the purposes of today, I'm going to deal with this as a brand new site. So as I say, it starts me on the open map player on the right. Just to mention a couple of the others, which could also prove useful. If you're trying to show high-level information, so you want to show where your property sits in relation to the major commuting routes, the major towns, cities, villages nearby, then the bottom two layers in the list might be ideal for that, particularly because these bottom two have a different pricing structure to the rest. On the bottom two, it will cost you £2.51 to print, regardless of the area that you print. So if I print that map view as it is there on an A4 sheet of paper, £2.51. If I do a full map of the region on an A0 size sheet of paper, still £2.51, no difference in price. So as I say, when I'm showing information on a high level basis, perfect for that. Particularly when you consider the vast majority of those draw and measure tools we mentioned earlier are also available across all of the layers. So if I want to measure distances between points using the line tool, outline areas, add text boxes, shapes, symbols, I've got the ability to do that on here. So as I say, that's our bottom two layers with that one-off print charge. Now, as you move up through the layers, you're going to get more and more information each time. Another very popular one is the 1 to 25,000 layer. Now, this one's also known as Ordnance Survey's Land Range layer. It's the one that you'll see very often used on things like outdoor activity packs, environmental reports, within leisure and tourism information, because it shows that information in far more detail. This map layer, for example, is showing me things like nature reserves, golf courses, museums, heritage sites, marinas. All of those are shown on there. But it's also perfect if I'm trying to find out information about the infrastructure for the area, because this layer, for example, will show me things like position of schools, libraries, hospitals, train stations. All of that is displayed on there as well. When I'm trying to build up a picture of the area around my site, as I say, ideal for that work. One of the popular draw measure tools that's very often used on this layer to help with that sort of information and certainly find out how far it is away from our site is the line tool. Click on there, click on your property, and then as you drag your cursor to any one of these points on the map, in the shape properties box on the right-hand side of the screen, it will then give you the distance to that particular point. And if you need a more accurate measurement than rather a straight line distance, you want to know the exact distance by road, for example, you can even click on the road system and find the distance that way. So as I say, very useful tool on a free to view, free to roam layer to help me draw a lot of information about the area around my site. The map player above that, the open map player. Now this is the one, as we said before, it always initially opens to. And if I'm completely honest, I don't tend to use it for much more than that. If I'm going to use a street level layer, personally, I tend to use the one above it, the vector map local. That being said, it is worth being aware that a number of the tools within the Promap system become accessible to you from this layer onwards. I've already mentioned the site information tool at the bottom of the screen. You'll also find that your viewable layers, again, available to you from this layer onwards. You'll also find one of our newer tools under Draw and Measure. The title fill tool is available from this layer onwards. That allows you to simply click on a point on the map once you've selected the title fill tool, and it will apply the title outline onto the map for you. We can now do that on all the map players from OpenMap upwards. So, as I say, whilst not one that I use particularly often, it's worth noting a number of things become available from here. And as I say, from a street level point of view, I tend to use the vector map local for that type of work, purely down to the fact that you get more information on here. More defined building outlines, fences, field boundaries, pathways, cutting information, all of that shown on here. And as I say, that's the reason I'll tend to use this one. We do have one other free to view, free to roam layer before we go into our master map. That's our aerial layer. The obvious difference being, instead of having a map, we've got one large aerial photograph covering the whole of the UK. Supplied by a company called Get Mapping, same supply that Google use. So you'll see the same images on here as you do on the Google site. But from there, we differ from Google in a number of ways. Firstly, and most importantly, in terms of licensing. A lot of people aren't aware that Google Earth, Google Street View, that range of products are not licensed for any sort of commercial purpose whatsoever, unless you've paid the additional license to Google to use them for that. When you print the aerials from Promap, they automatically come with that license. So if you want to include them in particulars, put them up on websites, portfolios, reports, you are covered to do that. The Draw and Measure tool is also designed to work on this layer in the same way as the mapping layers we've looked at so far. And that can be very useful because the aerial layer will show you certain bits of information even the master map layer doesn't show well. Things like positions of trees, road markings, items like that, far clearer on here than, as I say, even on that master map layer. So we've looked at those free to view, free to roam ones. Let's now go into that final layer. Now the master map, as I mentioned before, is the only map player that you go into for a new site where you'll pay viewing charge. If you then save the map onto the system, you can go back in and look at it as often as you like without incurring that charge again. When you initially go in, it will give you this expenditure details box, telling you what your viewing charge is, what it relates to, and it will require you entering a reference before you can proceed any further. It's very difficult to incur any accidental charges on Promap. It is very transparent when you are being charged. Once you've entered your information here, accept it. At that point, you're into your master map player. Now, this one is different from the others in that it will give you a choice of styles. The default is color, as we've got here, popular for presentations like location plans, property particulars. You've got a black and white option, planning application, land registry work, very popular for that. Certain local authorities will insist on that. Your outline shot far more clearly against the black and white background. You also have a third map style as well, which is a hybrid. And we mentioned before about how the aerial photo will give you information the mapping doesn't. Hybrid allows you to overlay one on top of the other, so I can get the benefit of that extra information. And this is probably the first of the true viewable layers that we have on the system, the ability to overlay one set of information on top of another. Now, underneath where you select your map style, this little slider bar will then allow you to control the dominance of the map or the aerial data, depending on what your requirement is. Now, the only downside, as far as hybrid is concerned, comes if you try and print directly from it. Because you're using the map and the aerial photo at this stage, it will charge you for both elements, so you would end up paying more. The way we advise you to use it, put the two together as I've done here, use the combined image to plot on the information that you need. Let's say the position of this roundabout as an example. But before you print, if you revert back to either the black and white or the color, it will retain the information you've added. But because you're no longer using the aerial photo, you won't pay for that element as well. So you get the benefit of both, but without incurring the charge. So that's our hybrid map style. So we've looked at the search process, gone through the various map layers that are available to us, the various map styles. Now, before we move into the viewable layers, customization and other elements, at this point, I would always advise you to save your map onto the system. Whenever you've incurred a cost, your viewing charge in this particular case, save your map before you do anything else. To save it, as we said before, click on the save icon, select the folder that you want to save the map into. I'm just going to save it into my training folder today. Give the map a name. A reference, and save it onto the system. And as we said before, that's now saved onto the system until I decide to remove it. So my map is saved. Now, before we move on to the print and customization tools, just to briefly touch on those viewable layers that we mentioned before. And these are a new addition to the Promap system. We've gradually been adding these on and updating them over recent months. There are now 9 viewable layers available to you. The top 3, land use designations, commercial titles and flooding, are permanently free to everybody. The 6 below that are available on a monthly subscription. Monthly subscription, £35 per user, which then gives that user unlimited access to all of those data sets. In terms of the information that they can show you, land use designations, if we begin there, that will draw information from the local authority for both recent and older plans. The plans themselves are then broken down into subcategories. So if you're looking for something specific, you can look for it. Let's say, as an example, I was interested in housing plans for this area. Perhaps I'm thinking of developing the area. Click on housing in that list. It will then show me the areas in the vicinity of my site where a housing plan exists. If I click on that highlighted area, it will then go on to give me more information about it. Classification, policy, source map, so on. In the case of the commercial titles, the second of our options, I can see my commercial ownership titles for the area. Now, you will notice commercial and personal ownership titles are split out on the system. The reason for this is under the Data Protection Act, we can't show as much information for the personal titles as we do for the commercial. In terms of applying them on, however, they are very similar. When you go into either, it will give you the option to apply your freehold, leasehold, or other. Other being any title that it's awaiting classification by Land Registry. When you select your options, what it will then do is show you your title outlines on the map. And if you then click within that title outline, it will give you more information about it. In the case of the commercial titles, title number, title type, the owner's name and address, the contact information. In the case of the personal titles, very similar. The only information it won't show, it will still give you the title outlines and title numbers, but it won't give you the owner information. That's the information we're restricted of showing this particular point in time. So that's our commercial and personal ownership titles. Now, the last of the free layers is flooding. This allows you to overlay flood zones 2 and 3 onto your map, see if they're going to have any impact in relation to your site. We've got some indication of that over on the left-hand side here. Or I can overlay surface water flood information. Surface water flooding responsible probably for 80% of insurance claims over the last decade or so. And this can immediately show me what the risk is to my particular site from that. The other thing to point out, if you have any of this viewable layer information displayed on the map, when you come to print, it will be incorporated onto your print as well. If you also want to add a legend to your map to show what that information relates to, under the print options on the left-hand side, the legend tool will allow you to do that. So I can apply that on immediately. You've also got the ability with all of the viewable layers, with the exception of the OS master map highway data, to be able to download it as an Excel spreadsheet as well. So as I say, a number of options as far as the viewable layer data is concerned. Planning, the first of our layers that comes under the subscription. Residential and non-residential applications for the area, broken down into subcategories, again, to make your search easier. For the larger applications, we won't just mark them on as an icon either. We'll actually show you the area that the application applies to, if we have that information available to us from the local authority. Again, clicking on any of the search results will give you more information about it. The application ID number, submission date, summary, decision, address, class of use, description, all contained in there. And even if that information is not enough, you can click on the link at the bottom. That will then allow you to go through to the local authority website, so you can then view the application in full. That will give you all the information on your documents, related cases, constraints, all incorporated there also. With regards to the personal titles, as I mentioned before, very similar to the commercial titles, just not showing that ownership information. Registered leases and property sold prices, the other two that Land Registry provide in terms of viewable layers. Registered leases, again, in a very similar way to the personal and commercial ownership titles, will show you the outlines of your sites on the map. Click on them to get the title numbers. And then again, more information about them, date of lease, term start date, term end date, price paid, all of that if it's available. Whilst under the property sold prices, at the moment, this only covers residential properties. We are hoping to add commercial at a later date. But for these particular options, click on them. What it will then do is give you information about those sales. So it will give you the sale price, as well as giving you things like price per square foot. If we have the information available to us, that will give you the price per square foot, which is calculated by dividing the sale price by the square footage quoted in the EPC register that was appropriate at the time of sale. So accurate to the property as it was at that point of time. We'll also give you the property address, date of sale, and the tenure as well for that. As well as your property sold prices, constraints, and there you can look at things like ancient woodland, areas of outstanding natural beauty, greenbelt listed buildings, local nature reserves as an example, all can be applied on there. You can then view exactly where they sit in relation to your particular site. We've got a local nature reserve off towards the bottom here. The last of the data sets, the OS Master Map Highway, allows you to look at the various road systems. If I want to see the A roads, classified roads, unclassified for the area, I can see exactly where they are, and by clicking on them, again, get more information about them. Form of way, road name, state, maintenance responsibility, all incorporated there. So as I say, a lot of information that you can obtain with the viewable layers, and you can incorporate into your prints as well if you require. Let's now move on to the actual print process. And as I said, this is the most popular journey for most people through the system. Now, when you select your print tab on the left-hand side, it will immediately apply your print frame on screen. Two reasons for that. Firstly, as I'm adding anything using the draw and measure tools on the right-hand side of the screen, I immediately know they're going to appear on my particular site. Also, on the left-hand side of the screen with the print frame on there, we're able to give you upfront what the printing cost will be. So you get that information nice and early. In terms of the print options, if you want to alter that frame in any way, you can update the scale using the various options there. Paper sizes are available from A4 up to A0, alter the orientation of your page, largely depending on the layout of your property. And you've also got a choice of print outputs. PDF, if you need your image to scale, or if you need your map to scale rather. Image, if you just want a JPEG or a PNG to drop into property particulars, presentations, things like that. And if you need both, and you have what they call a paper map copy license with the Ordnance Survey, you'll also be provided with an option to get both at the same time, just designed to speed up the ordering process for you. If you need to move the map beneath the frame, because you want to pick up particular features, items within that frame, you can drag the map beneath it. And then once you've done that, you just lock the frame in position using the options on the left-hand side. So that's our frame. I've got it positioned. I'm going to remove the site marker before we start customizing. It's getting in the way a little bit. So I use that toggle option at the bottom of the screen. Now, to the draw and measure tools. And let's say I want to start very, very basic on my map. I just want to find out what the area and perimeter of a building is. For that, I would use the fill tool. Now, the fill tool and the snap to point tool, which we'll come on to a little bit later, are the only tools that are restricted purely to this layer. Fill tool, very, very useful if you just need to get an outline, an area measurement on for one particular shape. And it will work with buildings, back gardens, pavements, roadways, fields. As long as they have one self-contained outline, you can just click on the fill tool, click inside the boundaries of the shape. It will immediately then apply a red outline onto the map for you. If you turn off the fill tool, click back on your shape, you'll immediately get the properties box from that shape on the right-hand side. In there, as we mentioned earlier, you've now got the option to change the measurement units. It will give you the area and perimeter measurements themselves and the option to add a label with those measurements inside it if you so require. To change the appearance of your shape, the options are also contained here. So if I want to make my outline a little bit thicker so it stands out a bit more clearly, if I need to change the position of the outline in relation to the boundary line, or I simply want to change the color of that outline, I can do all of that from here. If you're putting multiple shapes onto the map, you might decide that you want to put fills on them as well. So you can apply solid or pattern fills to your shape. And if you find when you apply your fill that initially it might obscure a bit of information, if I put on the green fill for this site, I've lost my property number here. We have added into the color section a transparency bar. Just drag that across to the left. That will then make your fill transparent so you can see through it to your item underneath. You can retain that information if you need to. So literally, a couple of clicks, I've outlined my site, changed the color scheme, and I could add a label on with my measurements inside it as well, as we mentioned. Should you want to change the measurements box, whenever you click on any item that you've created on the map, its properties box will appear on the right-hand side and enable you to change its appearance. Now, because we've started to add information to the map, I'm going to introduce at this stage on the middle row of the draw measure tools on the right-hand side, probably the most requested tools on the Promap system in the last 20 years or so. And that's the undo and redo options. Undo, definitely the most required. In the situation where I've created stuff on the map, if I accidentally move something, on this version of Promap, if I want to bring it into position or bring it back into position, I can use the undo tool to do so. On the older versions of Promap, you wouldn't have been able to do that. Your only option would have been to delete the shape and start it again. As I say, in this version, if you accidentally move the shape, click undo, that will put it back in position. If you decide you preferred your shape where you put it, you've also got a redo option. So by using those, it's far easier to repair any mistakes that you might make whilst you're outlining on there. The undo option you'll also find when using snap to point and clicking around the outside of the shapes will also allow you to undo clicks as well. And I'll show that a little bit later. So that's our fill tool. Now, the only downside with the fill tool has always been that it will only work on one shape at a time. So what we've added in to work alongside that is a merge tool. And what this will allow you to do is take any number of adjacent filled shapes and merge them together into one. As a basic example, let's say I need to find out what the area measurement for the entire plot of number 2 is. So I need to include the back garden as well. I've applied a fill to the building. I just apply a fill to the back garden also, which is in there now. Now I've got 2 adjacent fills alongside each other. The merge tool has become active. All I need to do now, click on there, select the 2 shapes that I want to merge. It will then join them together as one, and that's what I'm getting the measurements for on the right-hand side. And from there again, if I want to change the appearance of my shape, put in my color schemes, make them transparent, exactly the same as before. So that's using the fill tool alongside the merge tool. Now, the other fill tool that we've got, we demonstrated this a little bit earlier, is our title fill. Now, when you click on there, rather than just fill the shape that you've clicked on, what it will do is show you the title area of the site that you've clicked on. Now, in the event that your title number that you're looking at has more than one piece of land connected to it, not only will it outline the piece of land that you've clicked on in red, any other pieces of land that are connected, it will also outline in blue automatically for you. So this tool isn't just good from the point of view of customization, but also fact finding as well. If I need to find out exactly what's contained or attached to a particular title number, it makes life significantly easier. Once you put your title fill on there, you can work with it exactly the same way as we did with the fill tool before. If I want to change the color schemes on there again, if I want to bring in other titles alongside it and then merge the 2 titles, I've again got the ability to do that. But those 2 fill tools in a number of scenarios will significantly speed up your outlining process within Promap. Now, should you wish to stick with the traditional method of outlining, that's still available to you as well. And there's a number of situations where that may still be the best option. And that's to use snap to point, which basically turns your outlining process into a glorified dot to dot, in conjunction with either line tool to measure boundaries or the shape tool to measure areas. The line tool, click on there, click on the first point along your boundary, then go down the boundary, clicking on each point as you go. When you get to the far end, simply double left click, that will finish your line, click back on it to again access the properties box and change the appearance of your line. Again, giving the ability to add labels in for the length measurement if you need that. If you're outlining areas, the shape tool, click on first point around the outside of your shape, then carry on around the outside, clicking on each point as you go. We'll add your outline in blue. The red line that appears, which I really like on this version of Promap, I used to find, certainly when I was doing very large sites and I was putting outlines on, you'd very often lose your point of origin on the map. The red line shows exactly where I'm working back to, so I always know my point of origin. If you make a mistake whilst you're outlining, we've already mentioned the undo option. That will allow you to undo the clicks. You'll also find that Control Z on the keyboard will act as an undo option as well. So I can very quickly make amendments to my shape using that. If you don't realize that you made a mistake until you've actually finished the shape, even then, you don't have to delete everything and start again. If it's a basic shape that you want to alter, you might decide just to reopen it. So left click on your shape, press Control and Return on the keyboard, and that will open your shape up for you. Then use Control Z or undo from there to repair it. Alternatively, on the bottom row of the Draw Measure tools, you've got the Add Remove Point option. So if I need to alter an outline, I can add a point to my outline, click on the Add Point tool, click on the boundary that I want to change. This little blue circle will appear, and to now move my boundary to where I want it, I simply hold down the left click button over that blue circle and drag the line to where it needs to go. To remove points, if I've got too many in, just click on the tool, click on the point that you want to remove. Again, the blue circle will appear around it. And this time, rather than holding down the left click button, just single left click to take your points out. So as I say, number of options to allow me to very quickly repair any mistakes that I might make. If you need to add your own shapes onto the map, there's also options there as well. You'll find the ability to add basic shapes, squares, rectangles, text boxes. They all work exactly the same way. Simply click on the icon, click on screen, and drag out to create your shape. So I can very quickly add all of those items in. In the case of the rectangle and the circle, I've also got the ability, using the height and width options in the properties boxes, to set them to exact sizes if I so require as well. You can get them on there exactly the size that you need if it's required. Finally, in terms of shapes that you can add in, you've got our Promap Shapes library. And when you click on there, that will give you access to a number of pre-drawn shapes, predefined plot sizes, basic house footprints, garage footprints, T-markers, and a range of symbols that you can add in. You simply click on those to add them to the map. You can then just rotate them, position them as you need to from there. So as I say, a wide range of tools under that Draw and Measure section that you can use to customize your mapping. But let's say I've done everything I want to for my particular work of art for today. I want to get it out of the system now. I could add it straight into the shopping basket using the icon on the left-hand side. If, however, I want to add headers, footers, company logos to the map, I can use the Print Preview option. Simply click on there. That will take me into Print Preview. Now, first, it will show me the items that Promap's going to add to my map. I'll always get a north point in the top left-hand corner. There'll be a scale bar in the bottom left-hand corner, and the copyright information underneath will give me the plotted scale and the paper size for my map. On the right, I can use the upload option to upload my company logo into this logos area, where it will remain then until I decide to remove it. Adding logos at that point becomes easy. Just decide where you want to put the logo, top left, the logo that you want, and it will immediately bring it in. Headers and footers, again, fairly straightforward. Just enter into there the information that you want. At that point, just select it. You can then change its size, alter the font if it required, change its position on the footer, add all of that there. And again, to try and speed up processes going forward, if you find that you're always adding your logo in the same position, you're always going to incorporate the same bit of disclaimer text at the bottom, add that in once. Once you've done it, save it as a template. That means that the next map that you go into that requires those settings, you can click on the previews at the top. It will list all your templates for you, select the one that you need, and apply it on from there. So again, just designed to speed your process up. Once you've done all of that, just add it to the basket. That will then change the icon on the left to View Basket. Your icon at the top of the screen is now showing you've got one item in the basket and the cumulative cost of everything that you've ordered so far. But let's say I've not finished. What if I want an export for this as well? Okay, so I've got my initial map on there, but I'm going to involve an architect in the process. Go to your export section. Now, this will then provide you again with Draw and Measure tools so you can define the area that you want to export. I'm just going to take an area out here as an example. Now, as soon as you define your area, what it will then do is drop in the pricing for all of your various data sets. There's 4 areas that you can choose from here: current mapping, 3D models, height data, and aerial photography. Now, what we have found in the case of the OS master map topography layer, which is by far the most popular in terms of export, a lot of people tend to take that with height data. So when they put it into their CAD system, they can combine the two to create their own 3D image. So what we've done is we've created the first of our bundle offerings around that. So if you want the master map player with height data as well to create that 3D image, you've now got the ability to select at a discounted rate one of the 2 height data sets here, incorporate them with the topography layer, and make a significant saving on the cost of the 2. And that's one of a number of bundles that we'll be adding into the system as we go forward. In terms of other information available to you, 3D models, as I say, height data, aerial photography as well, providing you with a number of options that you can export out. Once you've selected the items that you want, add them to the basket. We'll update your basket again in the top right-hand corner, again, just keeping you updated on the cumulative cost of everything that you've ordered. The other option that we've got, we mentioned it before, reports. Now, there's a range of reports available to you in Promap. Land Search, the one at the top there, is a development site assessment report designed to bring together a number of very useful data sets around your particular site. Things like land use designations, commercial ownership titles, planning applications, things of that type. It will provide the report to you in a PDF format. Also, you can access the data via a viewer as well. So if you want to interrogate the information in more detail, you can do so. Plan Search Plus, as the name suggests, a planning report. Again, drawing together residential, non-residential applications, the land use designations, along with amenities information for your site, position of post offices, bus stops, things of that type. Utilities. If you need to obtain utilities data for your area, our report will look at all the utilities, not just the mainline sewage, electric, gas, water. We'll look at any fiber optic cabling, if Virgin have any cabling in the area, that's all incorporated into there as well. You pay for the speed at which the information is returned to you, and you can have that after 5, 10, or 20 working days. You can even get it for the CAD users out there in CAD format as well. There is an additional costing to that, but it will then give you all of the utilities data in CAD format, so you can overlay it onto your master map and see exactly where the utilities sit in relation to your site. Historical maps, very useful. For example, if you're doing things like looking at historical land use, if you're looking at boundary disputes on a property, just click on there. What it will then do is give you access to the largest database in existence of OS historic maps. We'll display all of them for you on the date they were published. We'll give you the scale of each one and allow you to preview them before you purchase them. And you can purchase them individually or purchase a number at the same time if you require. In that scenario, then when you download them as a zip file with all of the various historical maps in there. The preview always gives you a good idea of exactly how much coverage and what information that map is going to show. EnviroScreen, probably the most well-known of our environmental reports, very often requested by banks if they're looking for a lending assessment on the property. This will include the lending assessment within it. Also comes with a professional opinion on your site from our in-house environmental consultant. And probably most importantly, as with all of our reports and all of our data, comes with professional indemnity cover. So if you act on any of the data that's given and it's found to be wrong in any way, you are covered for that. Now, EnviroScreen, designed more for your domestic conveyances. If you do need to look at larger sites, that's where you may go to our Site Check Assess report. That will also go into more depth on your property as well, to use the pun. Things like geology data, borehole data, site sensitivity mapping, all can be included in there as well. So a wide range of reports again that I can incorporate in. Now, once you've selected your reports, again, it will just drop them into that shopping basket in the top right-hand corner. And let's say I've ordered everything I want to for my site today. So we click on the basket, view the basket, and I'm into my checkout screen. Make sure that I've got the right format for my print in there, enter my project and references that I need. For my export, I just select the format that I want for the export, whether or not I want grid line options. And if so, I can choose what distances I want the grid lines at. Very popular with a number of CAD users because it allows them to work out scale once they put that data into CAD. Again, I just make sure my references are correct. I then submit my order. Now, once you've submitted your order, it won't take you immediately to order history. What it will do beforehand, just again to make sure all of this information is retained on the system to be accessed later, it will ask you to save what you've done again. It will ask you to save each of the items to make sure. Now, to begin with, I'm saving my map. I'm quite happy to overwrite my previous map for this particular one. For the export, I actually want to give it a slightly different name. So I just update the map name there, and it will now save it as a separate map again. Now those are saved into my Open Save Map area. Now I'm into my order history. At the top, there are my 2 orders available for me to download. All I need to do is select the Download File tab from the right-hand side. And once I've continued through, what it will then do is bring up the download bar at the bottom of the screen. You see that on a number of applications nowadays. Your item will always appear on the left-hand side of that. Simply click on it, open it up, and there's my PDF that I've created from Promap. And from there, if I want to download that onto my system, if I want to print it off as a hard copy, I can do so. And as we mentioned earlier, when we were looking at that order history section, if I do want to reprint this map or edit it in any way, it's back to here that I come via that account area in the top right. Select my order, the reprint and edit print options will then appear for it on the right-hand side of the screen. So we've taken you there through the Promap system, given you navigation through all of the various areas. We've looked at the 3 different journeys: print, export, and reports, and we've looked at the checkout process and the order history. At this point, I will hand back over to Paul, and we'll take any questions that you may have relating to the system. Paul, back over to you.
All right, thanks, Dan. Nick. Well, look, I hope you found that useful today, and I just wanted to point out our future webinars where you can build on the knowledge you've learned today and see some of the more advanced tools, which I hope you get more from Promap when you're working with it. Some of the dates and times are on screen now, and you see we're going to specialise in break down some of the stuff around exporting for those who, and also for those who do print. We've also got a clinic one where you can come on and ask questions directly of us. We'll answer some of the more commonly asked questions around that. And again, it's all additional CPD points, so please look out for them and please do sign up for them. From today, please remember to download the companion on the right-hand side of the screen, and our details are on screen now. Please note them down. So if you ever have any queries with Promap, please do come to us with those. If you've got any more questions today, myself and Nick will stay online for a few more minutes. Use the question facility on the right-hand side of the screen, and I say we'll stay online and answer them for you. There are a couple of questions that have just come through. Nick, might be worth you just demoing these, perhaps. First one that's come through said, what is the best way of making an amend to a print that I've already done?
Okay, the best way, as we said before, would be to use that order history section that you find under account in the top right hand corner of the screen. Simply click on the account option, select order history. What it will then do, as I say, is display all of your orders, select the one that you want to reprint or edit, and as I say, it will give you the options from there. Okay.
Brilliant. Right, thanks for that. Another one that's come through for you is, right, when I went on and had a look at Promap, I didn't get the same drawing tools that you seem to get when you were going through the print journey. Why might that be?
I think that probably goes back to what we said before about those 3 tabs on the left-hand side of the screen. And it's just a case of having the wrong tab selected. As we said before, the way that the draw and measure tools work in this version of Promap, they're now directly linked to the task that you've selected. The only time that you see the full range of tools is when you've got print selected, because that's the only time that you need them. If print is going to be the job that you're doing most often and you want access to all of those tools, what I would recommend is next time you log in, select print, select default tab, and every time you log in afterwards, it will default to there for you.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks for that, Nick. Well, look, there don't appear to be any other questions coming through at the moment, but myself and Nick will stay online for a few moments. Use the question facility on the right-hand side of the screen if you want to ask us anything. If not, thanks so much for your interest in Promap today and for coming on the session. We really do appreciate it. So we run these every Friday, covering a different subject, different product, different area of the system. Please do sign up. It's all CPD pointed. Counts towards it. Grab some lunch and come and have a listen to us. If that's it for today, again, thanks so much for your interest. I hope you all stay safe and well. Have a great weekend, and we hope to catch up with you again shortly. But if there's no more questions, then for today, thank you and goodbye.